Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 5, activating starseeds, walk-ins, and the new human of the Golden Age. I'm your host, Waxela Sananda, and today it's my pleasure to share with you someone who probably needs no introduction for most of you, Brian Scott. Welcome, Brian.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Waxela.
Well, it is my pleasure, and this has been, for me, a long time coming. I think I've asked you for at least 3 seasons.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I wish I could have come before. I wanted to, but I'm so glad it worked out this time.
I'm so happy. I mean, it's all perfect. I'm so happy to have you. And this is the perfect time because you're here. So no complaints. So I'm excited to jump in, but before we begin, I'd like to get everyone present and on the same page. So I'd like to invite everyone to just join us in a brief alignment process. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, just go ahead and close your eyes and tune in to the breath, deepening the breath into the body. And as you're breathing, bring your awareness into the heart center, making contact with the light in your heart. And then expand that light out into every cell of the body, continuing up now, bringing a line of energy up from your heart into the heart of central sun. And feel that heart light of the central sun. And bring that down now into the crown of your head and spreading out into every energy center of your body, soaking up that sun energy. And now continue that line of energy down all the way into the core crystal center of Mother Earth, the heart of Mother Gaia. And now bring that crystalline energy up from the heart of the center of the earth into the base of your spine, up the spine, activating every energy center all the way to the top of the head. And then breathe those 3 light heart lights into one from above, below, and within. And feel that trinity of light. This is the holy trinity of light within you and around you, giving you focus, presence, awareness, and openness to receive whatever is in this conversation that's for your highest good today. And with that, come on back. Thank you so much for joining me. And now let's just jump in. Brian, I love that you didn't even really send me a bio. You're so humble. You're like the perfect mix of brilliant and humble.
Well,
And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so you know what you said. Brian's a researcher, author, podcast host of the Reality Revolution, author of, I have it here, the Reality Revolution book. Everyone get this book. It's incredible. The mind-blowing movement to hack your reality. And so all of these things that we study and consume, you've done all of them. You just really, I don't know anybody who has studied as much as you have in the realm of mind expansion and timeline jumping and all of the things you do. So I imagine a lot of people know what you're up to and know who you are, but for those that don't, and it's such a good story, I'd love for you to share a little bit of what happened to you to really have you jump into this body of work. You had a major life transforming experience.
Yeah, I'm probably very much like many of the people that are watching this now, you know, curious spiritual seeker, yearning deeply to understand. I found myself in a tough place, 7 years ago. I had been drinking too much, and the love of my life had left me, and I was alone and desperate, deeply in debt, just having terrible thoughts, didn't want to go on. And there was not really much I could do. I had a business that I had to work 25 hours a day, basically. I couldn't really sleep very much. And it was a hopeless, terrible feeling. And I had created this. And so I didn't really know what to do. The only thing I could really do was change myself within. I knew philosophically that I could do it. I'd read enough about it, but I hadn't applied it as much in my life, I started applying it and really started to create a connection, and had some amazing spiritual experiences. And around this time, I'm also a big football fan. So I'm watching my football team wins the Super Bowl. The Broncos win the Super Bowl, and I'm staying up late at night after I drive my girlfriend home, and I'm just watching TV, all excited that my team won. And I lived in a house kind of backed up by near a park with two sliding doors. One goes to the master bedroom, one goes to the sort of the living room. And I'm laying there on the couch like 3 a.m. and in kind of a haze. And I look up, and I see that the porch door is sort of like halfway. The door's open, and I'm oh my God, my cat, because my cat's my best friend in the world, and I'm freaking out because I was so like in its daze. I must have left the door open because I lost my cat. So I walk up to the door, and there's this kid just standing there holding a gun right at me, right there. And in that moment, even the moment when I woke up, when I looked at the door, I heard a whisper. I heard something. I was being guided. Everything that was happening started to become very surreal. I was in a different level of time space. Time had slowed down. I felt like I was in sort of movie. And so my first instinct was to run, but I decided to shut the door. Something told me to shut the door, and I shut the door, right? And I could hear the gun go off. It wasn't like in the movies, so it wasn't like a big boom. He had a 22, and it was a double pane glass. So I remember hearing the first glass breaking slowly, like, and I start running, and I can see all these streams of events happening around me. I could see myself laying in blood over here. I can see myself falling around by the table. I can see all these things happening. I'm in a moment where I'm seeing all of time happen at the same time. And then I hear the second pane of glass, the bullet breaking through the second pane of glass as I'm running. And it's very clear. I'll never forget this moment. So, and then I feel this, something hit my back, and the bullet bounced off my back. And I'm running to the other room, and there's someone else there. And I'm in like a Matrix type of moment where these bullets are zinging by me slowly. And I never felt at any point like I was scared. I should have been completely freaking out, right? Like I'm going to die, but I felt completely safe and everything's okay. So I run to the garage and call the police. The police say, hey, something happened. It looks like you got shot, right? I found the bullet later. It had bounced off my back. Maybe it had been slowed down, but it felt like a miracle. And in that moment, I really felt like I looked back on my life and how all the mistakes I'd made, how selfish I had been, and it was like I had been given this second chance, and it was this incredible blessing. I knew I had every breath became immensely amazing, and everything. The flowers were more beautiful. Everything about I had another chance to do something, and in that moment, I started really thinking outside of myself. Thinking, wow, I can really, it's all in my mind before, but so after this happens, I start, going out about my daily life, and really weird things start happening. Things are appearing in my house that I never owned. Objects, light lamps are there, and I used to, go for a little run in the morning or a walk, and there's like a lot that I would walk kind of catty corner through instead of walking around the sidewalk. And I'm doing the same thing. And there's an old building there, not a new one, an old one, right? There's all these little shifts and changes. People are contacting me. I go into my messenger, and I've had conversations with them that these are acting like childhood friends of mine that I've never remember talking to. And my kids are slightly different. They're listening to a completely kind of different music, and there's different movies that I know for sure that have never been out. It was like my own Mandela effect. And so then I went down another whole road. I had come from a background of policy debate, where I learned how to speed read. I could read a 400-page book in about an hour. It was, paid for my college. I got really good at it. I could take a single subject and research everything that's ever been said on it from every library in the world and get really good at it. And it was something I was good at. I had been trained at from very young. So at that moment, I thought I was insane. I had to prove my own sanity, and went to, a psychologist and got therapy. And am I hallucinating? Started researching physics, going to people, experts on physics, reading books, and then started to see that there's a real chance that I had shifted into another reality. And I needed to prove it to myself. And I started to experiment and see if I could consciously shift into a reality more and more. And as I started to do this, I gathered information, and that's kind of see what you see in that, in my first book there is did I enter into another reality, and then how could I do this in the future? And I'm sort of explaining that, and with this desire of surviving, I realized I could be of service from having the ability to research. And I was an old public speaking teacher, so I could read stuff, people like my voice, and it was a unique opportunity for me to start my podcast. And as I started to share my journey of what I had learned along the way, other people really resonated with it. And it was just this huge, wonderful thing that, wow, I can be of service in this way. And people responded to it. That's kind of where I am now from what I had been. It's moved me along this path. My life transformed because of the things that I learned. I found love in my life. My finances changed. Everything changed. There was hope again. And I wanted to share that what I had captured in this moment and the things I'd learned afterwards. I wanted to make it so that somebody didn't have to get shot to have this transformation. I felt like if I could just give you this thing that I experienced, then you can have whatever I had too. And that's been my mission, is that you can have whatever you want, because if I can do it in the place that I was at, then you can. And that's been my mission. It will be my mission for the rest of my life to change people's lives as much as possible, because I know that tomorrow could be the last day, as I learned in that moment that I had taken for granted so much, that now's my chance. I can just take what I've learned and try to help as many people as possible to change their lives from what I had known. So I'm super grateful it happened to me. I'm super grateful that everything happened to me. Everything was perfect up to that point. All the terrible things that had happened, the loves that I had lost, the money I had lost, that all of it was perfect, because it set up this perfect situation for me to be of service and expand on that.
It's such a powerful story. And some people that I've heard talk about the Mandela effect and having had the experience of, like you, finding themselves in a different timeline where things are different. A lot of those stories, people are victimized by it. They feel like, angry or upset, or where did my old life go? Or, like that kind of thing. I've read a lot of those, and you flipped that, you went the opposite direction. You're like, everything's better. And if it's not, I'm going to make it better. And I love that you've just taken it and really ran with it. And now you're this provider of so much information. I look at your YouTube channel, and I'm just baffled at the amount of content. Like, how is it even humanly possible to put out that much content every day?
It's just one episode a day. I only just do one episode a day. It seems to accumulate, but as I learned, everything is cumulative. So if I just do one episode a day, you look back after a couple of years and wow, it looks like a lot, but really I was just doing one episode a day.
Most of those are long. They're not like 10-minute episodes. They're like,
but I have people say that same thing as you, and I'm always bewildered. But you know what? I realize that when you have fun doing things, it's not really that hard to do. There's things you do every day that you love to do that are not hard, that you do every day. And that's basically when I do those podcasts, it is not work for me. I absolutely love it. And the other thing is, I got super lucky. I had another business. I had a bookstore that I own, and I had to let this person go who was like this amazing guy. And I was like, do you do anything else? He was like, well, I'm a sound editor. I worked for Jack Canfield and Stephen Covey and Tony Robbins. Oh, really? And so then he starts editing the sound of my videos. People started coming into my life that were amazing, that could edit, and all these things had happened. So what I'm doing is just reading for an hour, and then I'm done, and all these other people work on it. So it's not that hard. It's so much fun. I love it. I can't wait to do it again today. So
that's so awesome. I love that. So excuse me, you've been through all of these, like this timeline shift, and
Mhm.
you explore timeline shifting. That's one of the big themes in your
Yeah.
work. So are you happy with where you're at now, or do you still practice timeline jumping? Is that something that you have as part of your life practice? I'd love to
Well,
hear your perspective.
we're always timeline jumping, even when we don't want to. So it's not really, I don't want to timeline jump anymore, but I have learned some really important lessons as I've done this more and more. One of the keys is that you're going to have, if you get good at it, you're going to have really weird, crazy things happen. And if you go about telling anybody about it or acknowledging it, some sort of shift takes you back to that other reality. So I've kind of had to learn where I can't tell people too much. Like I had this new object show up, or a new building, or I said, new things start happening. I've kind of learned there's like this protective mechanism in the shifting of timelines where you don't talk about it too much. The more that you really point out the weirdness of it, there's some sort of corrective mechanism to take away that. But I've learned that I'm moving through these timelines like a wave, like I'm on a surfboard. And so I'm just trying to find the right wave, because I can get pulled into valleys and I can get pulled into beautiful places. So I'm trying to constantly create new energy to create and move into new timelines. Because if I become sort of passive, as many people do, you can get induced to these timelines where you're hearing all these conspiracy theories all the time, where terrible things are happening, and those things become real. Everything is real. There is no fiction. So if you're passively saying, oh, I'm good, I don't need to shift in any more timelines, you're still going to end up being shifted by the environment around you and by your own thoughts. So it is not a choice. We're constantly being maneuvered through different multidimensional timelines all the time. And so I've just sort of flowed into a system that works for me, so that I can maintain fascinating, wonderful timelines that improve and get better and better all the time. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, that does. And I love that you went there with conspiracy theories, because that, I have people on the show that are kind of in that world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certainly I get a lot of information about those things.
Of course, that's part of this world for some reason.
Yeah.
It's conspirituality, right?
It really is. So
Uh-huh.
what's your take on that? Do you ignore it all? What do you do?
Well, I think it's natural in human nature, especially the more you start to awaken that the world isn't quite what you think it is. That the beginning part of that spiritual awakening is an awareness that a lot of what you thought before isn't what you think. And so you can start to see obvious conspiracies. Especially part of the awakening process is an awareness of light and dark and the duality of life itself. And I think that is totally natural and normal. But there is a place where as you awaken, you move beyond that. One of the most important things that I've learned is that I'm you, and we're all one. The universe is sort of a gestalt, and all of consciousness is one. So when I see the cabal, that's this evil conspiracy, that's me doing the conspiracy. I have to deal with that and understand that. And as I've tried to, and as I've become aware that there is no fiction, if I start to hear information, which you naturally will in this culture and society, that is completely insane or crazy, I'm aware that even if right now in this moment that's not creative, if I continue to listen to that information, it will become real. So I, at some level, am choosing my reality with the information that I'm exposed to. Though I'm not in an echo chamber of happiness all the time, I try to just become aware in those moments when you get crazy conspiracies, to try to maneuver around them, and always remember that I am the creator and that everything is a dream within myself. And if I see things that bother me or conflict, the more I learn, I'm still not very good. I'm learning how to do it, but I'm still going within myself to see where these things are happening in the world. And you know what? I often see it. When I see a terrible person on TV that's horrible and misogynistic or violent or something, and I say, oh, that guy's, oh, he's terrible, I can't believe it. I take a moment and I see that portion of myself. And maybe in the past, I would push it away to the shadow, immediately say, that's not me. Now I'm bringing it up and saying, okay, where did this come from? And why am I this way? Is it a lack of love for myself? Is it something to do with my parents? And when I resolve these and bring them out into the open and let it sort of dissipate into nothing, a lot of times I see the issues in the world going away in the same way. So the more I see these conspiracies, the more I learn that it's something about myself. I'm learning about myself, but it's fascinating because it continues. And we're all sort of learning together about this as it goes. The news is changing. I think that we're also seeing something fascinating as we're moving into the new earth. As we learned from the law of one material, our unconscious natures are becoming revealed all around us. So what we see, crazy people saying crazy things, doing crazy things all the time, it's because as the more and more we move into the new earth consciousness, the more people's unconscious natures are naturally shown. Before, people would wear a hood over their face because they don't want to show that, that they're racist. But now I'm just going to show you that I'm racist. I'm not even going to wear a hood, right? With holes in the eyes, right? Now people are openly willing to reveal their unconscious natures. And as we do, we learn about ourselves and the world around us, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's I love your perspective. And I think I heard you say in there that as you do that shadow work and allow yourself to acknowledge, oh, I'm really angry at this thing that I'm seeing, or this guy or whatever it is. And as you acknowledge that within yourself, you clear it, you see the world clearing that issue as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I see somebody that is just the worst, most horrible person, I used to just say, why? I don't understand. But now I'll go into their perspective and try to understand why they are that way. And I can usually figure out why they're that way. I can understand why they're talking that way, what their motivations are. And then if I go in like I do in creating my own reality, I attempt to create their reality and I change this perspective. I find love for myself and others. I try to go within and introduce love into the perspective of it. And more, I start to see the outside world change. And I think more and more people will start to see this. On a group level, we will awaken our unconscious selves and deal with the shadow. And the shadow is going to go away. And the world shadow is going to go away. And I'm so excited because it's going to be amazingly beautiful. A lot of what is going to happen, because I think part of also the shift that you talk about a lot is part of the shift is that the veil is going away. We will be aware of all of our past lives. We're going to be aware of all the terrible stuff that we ever did. And I promise everybody's done terrible stuff. There's stuff in our closets that we are ashamed of that we haven't dealt with. And when I know right now, if I started this interview and instantly knew all your deepest, darkest secrets, that would be horrifying, right? But there's going to be a point where it's going to happen so often that we're going to be able to forgive each other no matter how terrible it is, because we see it in ourselves. And so there is a period, we're in this weird transition where we're awakening to ourselves, to the dark natures of ourselves and forgiving ourselves, because all of it can be forgiven. Even the most horrible thing can be forgiven. And when we openly love and forgive each other and heal each other, then something amazing is going to happen. And the more we do that, the more the veil will be revealed, because this veil still remains so that we don't go insane, but we don't have much choice over time. Perhaps by the end of my lifetime or my kids, the veil will almost be gone and we will know everything. It'll be natural. It won't be suddenly. It's slowly every day. At least that's my perspective of it. I would love to know yours in that regard.
Yeah, well, I feel like you are really you are bridging the dimensions here. It's the bridge from 3D to 5D. And what I love about what you're saying, Brian, is that we know this is a perspective-based reality, right? Most people know that logically that are doing the spiritual work, but the practice of it is sometimes not aligned. And you are speaking with your words. You're saying, yes, I'm aware that there are bad things in the world. I see it and I take it in And it's in the taking in and clearing it from within you. You are projecting then a new reality in love. And that is what is bridging the new earth. That's the stepping into the new
That's
earth.
the stepping.
Not everybody's doing that, but this
No.
is how it's done. And I love the way you put it, because I've never heard anyone say it that way before, but we speak it into being, and what we focus on, we know expands and we get more of. And you're speaking of it that way is having your reality shift, and you're sharing it in this way is having the listeners and viewers shift into that reality or realize, oh, I can do that too. Let's do that together. Let's see things change together and not look at what's wrong and focus on that and talk about that and share about that and go down those dark, holes. That's the bridge. And so as I'm bridging into this part of the conversation, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I heard you, I think it was a podcast a while back, I heard you talking about an experience you had where you actually knew that you had stepped into 5D or a higher dimension of reality. Would you share about that experience?
Yeah, the one that was clear, because I've had several. I think we all are constantly having little moments and things happen. That's what I believe. People are not knowing it or acknowledging it. But when I was in Mount Shasta and walking with my wife around a beautiful lake, and the colors became more vibrant, and I could start. I had been pondering Neville Goddard's idea that when you move to the next level, that you give immortal life. You are a life immortal giver. So I was like, I'm going to give immortality to every one of these plants and trees and rocks and animals. And as I did, I could feel them awakening to awareness of what was happening. And they were singing with joy and talking to me. And as I walked, I felt this wave of different trees starting to talk to me. And it felt like that they had been begging to talk to somebody for years. Nobody was listening. And they all had their own personalities. There was some that were ornery and some that were grumpy, and there's some that were happy. Some loved to tell stories, some that were shy. And they told me their histories and how long the trees have been here and their mythologies. It was so much information packed in through a sort of thought transference. It was amazing, the things that they were saying to me. And then as I walked, time space was different. Time was slowing down. Everything was different. And what felt like hours, by the time it was like 15 minutes had gone by. And I knew for a fact from what they had said that I had been in this place. And oftentimes now after that, I find it that I access 5D energies and things like that in nature. I think it's easier and more natural, away from sort of electronics and technology, that it's here now, but more accessible in those areas and regions. The thing that I find about when I enter into 5D consciousness is that it's the same thing as fourth density. I think they're both the same thing in the law of one. I didn't understand it before, and I expected it's this lovey-dovey heaven-like experience. It's not. What we know is that right now, as you look at me in my table and all the matter around me is made up of light. Light, protons, electrons, neutrons, protons, all of them are just rotating in different directions, and they make up the matter around us, right? In the 5D, there's still the same idea of matter and energy, but there's a different photon of light. And this light, it's like an upgraded computer. It's much more complex and dense. It carries way more information. And you have energy centers that can assimilate and utilize this energy. And as you do, things become more complicated. The amazing thing about the next illusion or dream that we awaken into is that it's all a greater level of complexity. And we have to learn so many more lessons. I believe what we're experiencing it's like, if you saw Inception, somebody wakes up in a dream, inside of a dream, inside of a dream. We're awakening from a dream into another dream. And eventually we awaken, but right now it's levels of dream. And so this next dream is a whole other illusion that's much more complex, with much more information to it. And so at the beginning, as babies, it's too much. You're hearing voices, you're seeing spirits, you have greater power with your mind to create. You can travel instantaneously. So many more things can happen. And it's because of this new potential light energy photon that's now available to us. If that makes sense. I keep on saying at the end, because a lot of times I think it may not make sense, but maybe you understand what I'm trying to say there. So
I absolutely understand what you're trying to say. I have had many of those experiences myself, and I think you described it really well. I've had actual people manifest physically from, when I feel like maybe it's a meeting in the middle. I'm not sure if I raise up in vibration. There's more information in the higher dimensions of reality. So it feels more real. When somebody asked me about those experiences, one in particular, I'm like, yes, they were more real than you sitting there, because
more real.
There was more information, right?
The information. Right now, there's a certain segment of us that are afraid of information. Although we're getting information all the time, there's some sort of unusual concept that, oh, information overload. And I just say, don't be afraid of information overload. Embrace complexity, because that's what we're entering into. And if we can become, if we can ride this complexity, then it's a wonderful experience. But that's the big bridge that we're going through, that it is dealing with this. When you go and look at nature, it is incredibly complex. When you look at the ultimate expression of what we're talking about is the leaf branching out, then branching out again, then branching out infinitely, right? That's what we're doing. We're the beginning of the root that's branching out, and we're experiencing it on another level. And I'm so excited. It's so exciting to experience it. We're on the cusp of it, and I feel like we're bringing it, and people like you and many others are bringing it into a greater reality, so we can manifest and experience it more and more.
Yeah, and another thing about that, Brian, that I experience is in those higher dimensional experiences, it's the information's not being perceived as information. It's experience. It's feeling. There's more feeling. There's more knowing. There's more understanding. There's more sound. The sound, you can feel the sound. You can understand, like everything's synesthesia, and the colors have, like you said, the trees are speaking to you and you're understanding them. There's a telepathy and a knowingness. So it's not like, oh, I'm reading lots of books information. It's totally experiential information, and it's beautiful.
It is. When we get information now, we're limited to the 5 senses that we have. And ultimately, while we're in this body, no matter how far we ascend, it's like we're in the cave looking at the shadow. We don't quite know what's going on. We hear and we see and we can taste and smell and feel, but it's very, very limited. As we enter into these other energies, we get little tastes of these other senses. And I believe eventually we can change our bodies with the light as we embrace this complexity, or we enter and create our own other body as we want to. And we will have even more senses that we will use to understand this complex new world that is coming to us, that exists right now as we sit here. So
yeah, I love the way you're describing that. I'll just make one more correlation with that. When I received my name, as when I had people manifest bodies to my grandmothers, but I didn't just receive my name. They didn't just say your name is Waxela. They gave me the name, like the reverberation of it, the sound, the feeling, the texture, the color, the knowing of what it's connected to and what it means, and the spelling, all in one moment. There was all of this information contained in this experience, and it was my whole body experienced it. That's the higher dimensional way of receiving information. And it makes reading a book with our eyes and thinking, and thinking thoughts about what we're reading seem very archaic, because it takes so long to receive that information that way.
Well, what I understand from the law of one, when they're speaking to higher density beings, that eventually in the 4th density, 5th dimensional existence, we don't use words anymore. It's so limiting the way we communicate with language. It's incredibly limiting. We communicate in packets of thought information. So we've all experienced something, and then we wanted to talk to our friends about what happened. And then when we explain it, as I just explained what happened to me, it's never going to be close to actually what happened to me. So, we will be able to send that experience to someone else. They'll be able to experience it exactly. And can you imagine the informational difference when we can communicate like that? That's what I see happening on this next level. And we're slowly starting to do it with our own limited human brains, but it'll be way, way more as we expand and evolve.
Yes, absolutely.
I also wanted to say, I'm aware of all of the word origins of Sananda and Waxela. I'm fascinated by your name. I love it. So it's very, very cool. It means it means a lot more. I mean, it's very powerful. So
thank you. Yes. But that's another story.
Okay.
But I, as you're speaking, and I think you're also a bridge of information, because I know just the way you've described your ability to consume and assimilate and share information, that's like next level. Not most people don't do that or don't have that capacity. No. And when we are in the higher dimensions or in dream time, we can go to the halls of knowledge and open the books of knowledge or the book of knowledge. And we don't read the pages. It's like this assimilating of knowing from the book isn't really like with words that we read, it's experiential. And I think that's really like where we're taking information, or where like the next level of information is. It is. And maybe some of video games and things are kind of like getting there in some ways, and movies.
Yeah. I had not, in our last interview, we talked a little bit about our past lives and stuff. And the limited amount that I've allowed myself to know about my past life is that I was a part of a species that was all about gathering information. And even if I utterly failed in this incarnation, I was just going to gather as much information as possible, because we share and meld our information. We're like super librarian researchers kind of. And so I was very fortunate to be awakened. And so I could use this, because I had always been like that. Since I was a little kid, I would be reading the history of Thailand for no reason. I just go to the library and just constantly devouring information. And I never knew why. It didn't make any sense why I was doing it, right? So
you are the embodiment of the Akashic records.
Well, maybe. I think that intergalactically, there is an intergalactic. We have an Akashic on the Earth, but there's like sort of a project galactic wide to gather information that goes beyond just the Akashic of the Earth. And as I gather information, my information will be shared with other Akashics. And there's like a sort of super database that's gathered that can never be as comprehensive as, we have a pretty comprehensive with the Akashic, but galactically, there's an ongoing effort to gather all of the knowledge and information, even from a small little planet like the Earth, right? So I think it continues on, that there's so much more information for us to understand. So
yeah, and the Earth is a huge warehouse, because every soul that comes in is imprinting its Akashic records into the core of the Earth, and adding, our DNA is imprinting and adding all of that information, not just of this life, our Earth lives, but of our galactic and our starseed lives. And there's so many starseeds and wanderers and higher dimensionals here. Yeah. The Earth holds a massive amount of information. Yeah. So yeah, it's no small thing to be an Akashic.
I'm honored for you to say I'm the embodiment of the Akashic. I have not heard that one. I appreciate it.
I definitely see that in you. It's evident. And of course you're doing what you're doing and sharing so much information and enjoying it. And it's natural and easy for you, because it's like who you are. You are a book of knowledge. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is your best practices, or your favorite practices in all. I know you share so much. I found you because of Neville Goddard, because I love Neville Goddard's work. But do you have a favorite or a couple of favorite authors and best practices that you do in your life regularly?
Well, yeah, I love Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard is he is really somebody that can communicate and bridge to people that are especially raised in a devoutly religious family that have been taught the Bible, but then they start to question it because it seems ridiculous. Like, was there really a Noah's Ark? And then he'll explain, yes, it's much more than you think. Neville Goddard is very powerful, simplistic teacher of of attraction, essentially. But I'm also, in terms of my own life, Vadim Zealand, the book, not necessarily the channel, but the book is really fascinating, teaching reality transurfing. I've learned about the mechanics of reality shifting and timeline transferring. I wake up, there's an amazing concept that has really uniquely changed my life, the wave of fortune. And a good way for you to understand this: have you ever woke up and you get up and on the wrong side of the bed, you stub your toe, and then something else happens, you break your coffee mug when you go downstairs, and it seems like a sequence of events then occur throughout the day that are all like the flat tire on the way home, and you have you can take this same effect, which is an actual scientific thing that's happening with your energy, and you can reverse it, and you can create a wave of fortune. So you can wake up and try to synthetically create a wave of fortune that's the opposite of that, by drink that first cup of coffee and get super excited, jump up and down, enjoy. Neville Goddard even talked about this effect. He taught that a woman would sit in a bathtub in the morning and say, something wonderful is happening to me now, for a few minutes before she'd go out, and then something amazing would happen to her. And so I try to create a wave of fortune, and I learned that from Vadim Zealand. I've learned from dozens and dozens of authors, and I've tried to integrate and pick the most interesting things from all of them. Those are the ones I've really integrated. The thing that Neville Goddard really teaches is when you go to sleep. So I try to wake up, I create a wave of fortune. I try to listen at some point during the day. If I'm busy and I'm not meditating a lot, I try to at least give myself a few minutes of listening, meaning, you want to sit in silence, but we've all had that friend that all they do is talk, and then you can't really say anything. And I feel like when we're speaking with the communicator, with the creator, when we're interacting with the creator, with God, we're oftentimes that bad friend that's doing all the talking. So if we listen, then God can get a few words edgewise, and they can talk to us. So I like try to sit and listen a little bit. And then finally, at the end of the day, I have to interact with my subconscious. Every chance we go to sleep is a huge opportunity. Don't just go to sleep ever. The Bible has a powerful teaching about Adam and Eve. Eve is our subconscious. We are all Adam. And so at night is when Eve will tell Adam all the problems of the day, right? The analogy I give in my book is the wonderful movie Lady Hawk with Michelle Pfeiffer, where there's the two people that have been cursed, where one is a hawk during the day and one is a wolf at night, and during dusk, during that little period of time before the sun goes down, they could see and be with each other just for that moment. And so there's this little moment of time right before you're going to sleep where you can interact and communicate with your subconscious, and that's so powerful and important. You might want to spend 8 hours with it if you can do sleep meditations, but at a minimum, ask questions, revise your day. Your subconscious is all powerful. And so why would you waste the time you have this amazing chance to speak with your subconscious. So those are the big things I've learned. And I learned a lot about that from Joseph Murphy, who's an amazing teacher as well. But there's so many more. It's amazing. So.
Yeah, so many. Thank you for sharing those. And Dr. Joe also says,
Dr. Joe, yeah.
Don't get Dr. Joe Dispenza for people who don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get out of bed in the morning until you're in love with your life.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So I notice, if I wake up and my mind starts to rate, like, I got to do this and this and this, like, wait a minute, bring it back to center, and, and tune in and love life before you get out of bed. That sets the whole day up. Yes. So thank you for sharing all of that. I'd love for you to share if there's because you have such a wealth of information. And by the way, I want everyone to know that every author that you've mentioned and all of these books and things you read them on your YouTube channel. So you can go to Brian's YouTube channel and listen without even, just, it's so easy. You've made it so easy to access all of this. If there's, if you could share anything to help people who are really wanting to ascend, who are really wanting to step into their superpowers, to their new human, what would like the golden gem or the diamond be that that could really help people maybe make that shift if they're struggling a little bit?
I think it's a tough question to answer because everybody's situation is a little bit different. But a lot of times people have major doubts about what's going on. So it's this sort of process of communicating with their subconscious. And there's also the lesson of love, especially when you're talking about ascension. In particular with ascension, a lot of times we get caught up in the particulars, the mechanics, all of the myths and the science of it and the interesting parts of ascension. But the really core element of ascension in particular is love, and it's understanding in particular the love in the moment. And if I think the key for my own ascension and understanding and helping others to ascend is to simplify it a little bit and to start looking at whatever's going on with it. You're going to have catalysts and weird arguments and things happening all the time, and start asking, okay, where's the love in this moment? And oftentimes the only love that's there is you. And you're the agent of love. And so as you ascend, you kind of move outside of yourself. As you enter into this understanding of love, it really has nothing, your ascension has nothing to do with you. As you move your focus outside of yourself, you start to ascend as you start to apply these lessons of love outside of yourself. That's the thing. If you're having doubts about it, then that is a question of your subconscious. And I would only say you're all powerful. You are God. Continue to remind yourself of your divinity and your power on a regular basis. There's a point where there's a sort of click and you get it. And then the point is, okay, now I am all powerful, loving being. Where am I going to give this love? And you start to ascend when you move outside of yourself, and you reach a point where you don't even think about yourself anymore. You're only thinking about what other people, because you love them so much, and you start applying these lessons. And that's the point where if you're really doubting or struggling with this, forget about yourself for a little bit. Just be aware that you're all powerful, but just for a minute, just think outside of yourself. What do you have friends right now that need help? Do you have something going on that you can do? Is there some way that you can add love to this moment that you're in? And as you do, something amazing happens, and you do find yourself ascending to the greatest, most wonderful heights. And it's all this amazing lesson that I've learned. That's the lesson I've learned, is the lesson of love. We've been given lessons in this life from the moment we were born. We had to love our parents and our friends and our family, and then we meet people, and everything is always a lesson of love. But now it's the next lesson of love. It's a lesson beyond ourselves. And that's what I could say, the best thing I can say.
That's so perfect. And I love how you always bring the information back to service and serving the collective, not rather than the self, or getting past, the I, and serving the whole. And I know that's such a huge part of your message, and I appreciate that so much. Well said. We are coming to the end of our time, and I wish we had hours and hours to hang out, but I respect your time and everyone else's. And I want to make sure that we tell everyone you have some wonderful free gifts to give away from your Aura program. What is your Aura program?
I have a program, Alternate Universe Reality Activation, Alternate Universe Reality Actualization. It's a 90-day program where you can choose whatever reality you want, and then it gives 90 days of meditations that you can follow and actions to create reality. In that program, I created some unique content only for people that purchase that program. But I wanted to give these two programs. It's a lesson on the sexual transmutation of energy. I had given you that link. And also I created a unique meditation for couples that are in love. Have you ever meditated with your wife or mate, and it's you both listen to the meditation, and it's joining the flame. It's a really powerful short meditation that you can both imagine for each other, and it's a tantric, and it's powerful with some incredible music. I have not shared it on the channel. I only share it for that program, and so I had given you that link. So hopefully people, write me back and tell me how, if you had some success with it, because when you meditate together with someone at the same time, listening to the same words, imagining for each other, so amazing, so powerful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. I'll be sure to have those links in the show notes and on your speaker page, and everyone can download those. You have so much wonderful information. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. And to everyone watching, go get the Reality Revolution book.
Oh,
check out Brian Scott's YouTube channel. It's your name, right? Brian Scott.
Brian Scott.
Yeah. And I hear you have another book coming out.
I'm still working on it, but it'll be coming out in the next 6 months, most likely.
All right. Looking forward to that too.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
so much.
everybody. Have a beautiful day or evening. Namaste.